Tonight on Bridge City News, RCMP say they found the two bodies of the teen suspects wanted in connection with 3 BC murders. Lethbridge police were called out to a North End neighborhood last night after receiving word that a man barricaded himself inside of a home. Recent storms across southern Alberta caused power outages and more than $1 million worth of damage from hail.
Your nation, your province, your southern Alberta. From the heart of Lethbridge, it's Bridge City News with Hal Roberts.
Good evening. Thanks so much for joining us. One of the largest manhunts in Canadian history is over. RCMP say they have found the bodies of the 2 teenagers wanted in connection with the murders of 3 people in British Columbia. Police say the bodies of Briar Schmigelski and Cam McLeod were found earlier today by the Nelson River in northern Manitoba. An autopsy will be undertaken to confirm their identities and cause of death. Police believe they are the bodies of the 2 suspects. Schmigelski and McLeod were charged in the second-degree murder of UBC lecturer Leonard Dick. They were also the suspects in the shooting deaths of Australian Lucas Fowler and his American girlfriend China Dees. It was a tense situation in northern Lethbridge last night. Police were called out to a townhome in Highland Park around 6:30 p.m. When they arrived, they found a man had barricaded himself inside of one of the units. A couple of witnesses at the scene described what happened, and one was a mom who could not return home right away to see her daughters.
No, I was at work when my daughter, texted me that there was police over here because one of the houses has a bomb and weapons inside. I don't know. That's why I hurriedly came home just to look at it, and then they don't want me to let me in the house.
A friend came over and said there's cops outside and there's just the one truck, and then all of a sudden, probably 10 minutes after, they swarmed it. My neighbor said that there is a guy inside who locked himself in there with kids and guns. We don't know really what's going on. There's kids in there. What could happen to them? It's just scary. It's not the city I grew up in. Been here for 26 years and it ain't the same.
After more than 2 hours of negotiating with police, the suspect was taken into custody. 30-year-old Harold Wilkins of St. John, New Brunswick is charged with assault, uttering threats, resisting arrest, and mischief to property under $5,000. He remains in custody and is awaiting a bail hearing. Now, when you think of a group of bikers, you must picture the open road, chaps, leather jackets, and sometimes even skull tattoos. But these bikers do much more than just ride. As Jeanette Rocher explains, Bikers Building Bridges has a mission to build a better community, even if it means picking up used needles in parks.
On hot summer days like this, the sound of motorcycle engines are all abound. Tony and Yvonne Sanford love to ride the open road with their crew, but there's something different about this bike club.
We do a fundraiser for the Children's Hospital once a year, which is Kelly's Ride. We do toy rides for that. We've done Mamapalooza, which was a free event on the north side at the Interfaith. We are constantly doing something.
They and a group of other riders started Bikers Building Bridges just over a year ago with a sole purpose in mind.
Children, youth at risk, we're there.
Just this week, they spent several hours picking up debris in Sequoia Park after they saw this post about a 6-year-old boy who got pricked by a needle while playing in the park.
We thought we'd do our bit and come out and just sweep the area. We've all been trained to pick up needles and with the debris that comes with it. So we thought we'd come out and just do our bit. We're focused on youth at risk, so anything that affects a child, we try and help.
The couple says they were joined by 6 others from their club and spent about an hour and a half combing through the 3 to 4 acres of park space. The Sanfords say they don't really want the publicity, but hope that what they're doing will motivate others into action.
Our Facebook post has reached over 17,000 people. That means if 17,000 people in this community actually spent 10, 20, 30 minutes outside helping something in this community, that would make this whole city a whole lot better.
For Bridge City News, I'm Jeanette Rocher.
Last night's strong winds caused power lines to go down in the Turin area, resulting in dozens of customers to be without power. Fortis Alberta was on the scene late last evening and worked into the afternoon today to mitigate the issue and restore power to at least 82 customers. Farmers near Tabor and Barnwell were hit with hail and wind damage on Tuesday night. Now, the storm affected crops, farm equipment, trees, and buildings. Dustin Monson, a local farmer in the Cranford area, says they were hit with more than $2 million worth of damage.
basically just leveled almost every crop we had. Our corn was over 6 feet tall. It's leveled down to about 3 feet and just stripped. Potatoes or vines are all smashed off, and it's after such a beautiful growing year and some phenomenal crops out there, it's hard to drive around and just see everybody's livelihoods kind of leveled. So thinking and praying for everybody that it goes the best that it can, and work forward and go do the best we can.
With the recent dry conditions in southwestern Alberta, the city of Lethbridge has implemented a fire ban in the River Valley. It includes the use of fire pits and camp stoves in the river bottom. For updated information on the fire ban, you can call the Fire Prevention Office at 320-3811. It's corny, but the Lethbridge Corn Maze is a fun-filled afternoon for the entire family to get lost in. They celebrate their 20th anniversary this year. The Lethbridge Corn Maze have a very special theme.
Every year we make a new corn maze and we have to look for a new theme. This year we decided to do Juno Beach, 75th anniversary, 1944 D-Day, and also the Vimy Ridge, which is also a remembrance thing from the First World War. This spring I was able to go there to the Vimy Ridge Memorial and see the impressive sight, and also all the graves that so many Canadian soldiers gave their lives for freedom. Not only Canadian soldiers, of course, but we are commemorating that. So all veterans from the Canadian Army or even the British Army that are here, they can get in for free if they have a veteran's ID or an Army pass. Then we let them for free. We started our first corn maze in 2000, so 20 years ago. So this is our 20th anniversary of the corn maze.
The Southern Alberta attraction is open until October 26th. For admission prices, directions, and hours, visit the Lethbridge Corn Maze website. This week marked the 74th anniversary of the surrender of Japan, bringing to a close the hostilities of World War II. And 60 years after Sadako Sasaki's death, the story behind Hiroshima's paper cranes is still unfolding.
So what this is goes back to an old belief from Japanese people that if you fold 1,000 cranes that your wish will come true. And so there was a little girl, her name was Sadako Sasaki, and she was 2 years old at the time of the bombing of Hiroshima. And 10 years after the bombing, she was diagnosed with leukemia from the exposure of the radiation. And so what she was doing was folding 1,000 paper cranes in hopes of her recovery and also in hopes of world peace. Sadako unfortunately was only able to fold about 644 cranes before she passed away, but her friends and classmates finished folding the 1,000 paper cranes and actually started a movement across Japan, and actually now it's worldwide.
Nikiyuko Japanese Garden will be folding 1,000 paper cranes this week to honor the victims and those touched by the tragedy. The provincial government announced today that it will be introducing a $10 million fund to support Indigenous groups who favor energy development. The initiative, called the Indigenous Litigation Fund, means Indigenous people can now apply for a grant to help with legal matters when supporting Alberta's energy and natural resource development interests. In a statement today, Premier Jason Kenney said, "This fund is yet another component of our fight back strategy to stand up against the foreign-funded special interest landlocking Alberta energy. Indigenous peoples who favor energy development are often left out of the conversation, and this fund will help defend their right to be consulted on major projects and to ensure their voices are heard too." The litigation fund can go towards researching positions, developing motions, participating in trials, or intervening in processes and legal actions. Prime Minister Justin Trudeau spoke with Liberal supporters at a fundraiser in St. John's, Newfoundland. Trudeau says he expects another sweep of the province that elected Liberals in all 7 federal seats in 2015.
The kinds of folks you are has always been focused on the future, ready to roll up your sleeves, very aware we've got real challenges in our daily lives and our future, but always more than confident we're going to be able to tackle them. And that's exactly what we need to bring forward as an attitude as Canadians. Because yes, we're facing big challenges around the world, whether it's first and foremost making sure that life is affordable for more and more Canadians, making sure that everyone has a real and fair chance to succeed, making sure we're caring for our seniors, we're giving a good education to our young people, making sure that hardworking folks are able to adjust to the new realities in the workplace and be confident about a career path that will carry them through to retirement.
Public Safety Minister Ralph Goodale is urging internet giants to do more to combat the exploitation of children online. The Liberal government has committed around $22 million over the next 3 years, with much of the money going towards working with digital industry leaders to tackle the problem.
We need to keep working with the internet companies to get them to improve their technology so they're better able to recognize the material that needs to be removed, that they have the capacity to remove it instantly, and in our various meetings with them, they provide anecdotal evidence about how they're improving the time frames from a day to an hour to 2 minutes to 30 seconds. So the work is always going to be a work in progress.
Police in Montana say they're looking for a Canadian man they say may have drowned in a small lake. The U.S. National Park Service's rangers received a report yesterday of a man struggling in Prairie Lake located in Glacier National Park, then going under. Witnesses say it appeared the man may have gone into the lake to retrieve a dog. The dog was later found dead. The Park Service says the victim is from Edmonton, but no name has been released. At least 200 protesters gathered outside Miami Valley Hospital in Dayton, Ohio today. Many were hoping to send a message to U.S. President Donald Trump that he's not welcome in their city. A bar shooting left 9 people dead and dozens more injured last weekend. Connor Betts opened fire in Dayton's Oregon district early Sunday morning, killing 9 people, including his 22-year-old sister, before being shot and killed by police. Later today, Trump was expected to travel to El Paso, Texas, the site of the second mass shooting last weekend. An ex-girlfriend of the Ohio shooter, Connor Betts, says he wrestled with urges to hurt people. She says on their very first date, he showed her a video of the synagogue shooting in Pittsburgh.
When I first heard that it was a Connor Betts, I was like, there's got to be another Connor Betts. It's like not a common name, but it's got to be another one. And then it was 24-year-old from Bellbrook, and it was definitely him. And then I didn't really have a whole lot of thoughts. I just started crying, and my first real thought that I remember was I need to do something. I need to do something. I need to talk to the police. And so I called the tip line, talked to them, and I'm still working through the shock. I'm sure I'll eventually feel it in full force at some point.
The mass shooting at an El Paso, Texas Walmart struck a city some call a Mexican-American literary and political center very hard. We have more now in this report.
El Paso, Texas is a gateway to the United States and Mexico. Founded before the Declaration of Independence.
In many ways, all roads lead to El Paso.
Daniel Chacon, a California native, Texas transplant, and novelist in El Paso, says it's a cultural crossroads for Mexican Americans.
And I said, can I help you? And she goes, you're Daniel Chacon? And I thought she had read my book and wanted a signature. I go, yeah. And she goes, I'm your cousin. And that following weekend, I met about 50 of my cousins that live in El Paso. That's just what El Paso's like. It's like almost everybody's hometown.
A hometown grief-stricken after a gunman murdered at least 22 people on Sunday, both American and Mexican. A total nearly equaling those killed in the city last year.
Despite saying we're a big city, in top 20, we're a small town mentality. We all get together, we're friends, we know each other.
Authorities say racial hatred and political rhetoric motivated the suspect. A reported online screed written by the 21-year-old man said he'd target Latinos and immigrants.
I've never felt this kind of distress in my life.
Communications professor Richard Pineda says the shooter picked the border city for a reason.
There's no mistaking the fact that El Paso has been essentially under a microscope as immigration issues have come to the forefront. Also, folks haven't made the connection that the president kicked off his re-election campaign in El Paso.
The Trump administration has repeatedly zeroed in on El Paso, claiming the border city had a crime problem due to immigration, a claim proven false. And it's been one of the testing grounds of hardline Trump immigration policy. More than 700,000 people live here, coexist with their Mexican neighbor Juarez to the south. Both cities built on trade and immigration. El Paso is almost 80% Hispanic.
It's always been a Mexican city.
A Mexican-American cultural capital where the zoot suit became a fashion icon.
You know, Pachuco is, pictured with the baggy pants and the watch chain, the zoot suiter. Well, El Paso, for us, we call it Chuco. We say, I live in Chuco.
A community of political activists, writers, poets, professionals, and merchants.
We would have shown him around the town. We would have shown him what a wonderful place this is, that he can walk out at night and not worry about being mugged.
At a growing makeshift memorial near the crime scene, El Pasoans lament and reflect.
I am Irish, Mexican. My last name is German, my stepdad. So it's very diverse, and that is the beauty of America.
For Daniel Chacon, diversity in immigration is why the city nicknamed El Chuco is a success.
Most of us are bilingual. Even white people here speak Spanish.
A binational city and a culture and history that span two countries for centuries. John Bone, Associated Press, El Paso, Texas.
3, 2, 1, 0. Ignition, liftoff.
A SpaceX Falcon 9 rocket launched from Cape Canaveral, Florida last night. SpaceX says the rocket successfully deployed an Amos-17 satellite. It will provide satellite communication service to many countries throughout Africa. You gotta love technology. A reprieve to the hot temperatures, including some rain in the forecast. Complete weather details are coming up. We had some sunshine mixed with cloud and hot again today. Tonight, just a few clouds developing with a low near 11. Tomorrow, mainly sunny with a high expected near 32. A low pressure system moves in Friday, bringing more clouds and a high of 26. Saturday, clouds, showers, and the mercury dropping to 17. Sunday, more rain on the way with a high of only 18. Monday, a good chance of showers again with a high near 21. Tuesday, the clouds should clear out and we should see a high near 24 degrees. Looking at the almanac, the average high for this time of year is 26 and an average low of 11. The highest temperature on this date was recorded in 1970 at 36 degrees, and the record low was 4 in 1939. Sunrise was at 6:10, sunset at 9:05. Let's see how tomorrow's shaping up across the country now. Victoria will be mainly cloudy at 22. Expect a couple of degrees warmer in Vancouver on Thursday. It should be mainly sunny and 28 degrees in Calgary. A slight chance of showers and 22 for Edmonton. A few clouds and 25 is on tap for Regina. Mainly sunny and 24 for Saskatoon. Lots of sunshine and 24 degrees for Winnipeg tomorrow. Thunder showers and 25 for Toronto. Thunderstorms and 27 for both Ottawa and Montreal. Expect showers and 23 degrees for Fredericton, New Brunswick. It should be overcast and 21 in Halifax, Nova Scotia. Charlottetown, PEI will be sunny and 24. And in St. John's, Newfoundland, expect a mixture of sun and cloud and a high near 18 degrees tomorrow. A class action lawsuit has been filed in Ontario seeking compensation for Canadians affected by the massive Capital One data breach disclosed last week. The suit filed by the law firm Diamond & Diamond asks for more than $350 million in financial compensation and other forms of relief. The suit's representative plaintiff is Rena Del Gudici of Bolton, Ontario, who obtained a Costco wholesale MasterCard through Capital One. The statement of claim seeks that the lawsuit be certified as a class action covering Canadians who applied for credit cards from Capital One between 2005 and 2019. Transport Canada data shows more than 14,000 electric vehicles were bought across Canada during the first 3 months of Ottawa's new rebate program. On May 1st, the feds began offering rebates up to $5,000 on the purchase of some electric vehicles. The rebate was intended to bring the price of zero-emission vehicles closer to their gas-powered cousins. Ottawa wants 10% of all cars sold to be zero-emission by the year 2025, 30% by the year 2030, and 100% of sales by the year 2040. Disney dropped 6.7% after reporting results that fell far short of analyst forecasts. The media giant says third quarter net income was down 39% from a year ago to $1.76 billion US. Company officials say one of the biggest issues affecting earnings was the disappointing performance of the newly acquired Fox Entertainment. Disney announced its third quarter results after the market closed yesterday. A computer problem at British Airways caused the cancellation of more than 100 flights. The company says they were having issues with their check-in systems. It caused delays or cancellations for flights from Heathrow, Gatwick, and London City airports. The cancellation stranded around 20,000 passengers. Now, here's a look at today's markets. Recapping one of our top stories this hour, one of the largest manhunts in Canadian history is over. RCMP say they found the bodies of the 2 teenagers wanted in connection with the murders of 3 people in BC. Police say the bodies of Briar Schmigelski and Cam McLeod were found earlier today by the Nelson River in northern Manitoba. An autopsy will be undertaken to confirm their identities and cause of death. What are the keys to a successful marriage? Communication, remembering that toilet seat lid and keeping it down? A pastor who has counseled many couples, Kelly Stickle from My Victory, joins us in studio to give us his thoughts next. But first, here's a look what's happening in and around your community.
Here's your Bridge City News community calendar. The Miners Days Historical Association of Colehurst is hosting its annual Miners Days on August 9th and 10th. On Friday from 6 to 11 p.m., enjoy a free family dance at the Colehurst Community Center with live entertainment by DNR. Then on Saturday, come for a delicious $2 pancake breakfast from 8 to 10 a.m., followed by a parade at 11 and other activities taking place at noon at the Miners Memorial Park, such as a show and shine, slip and slide, petting zoo, and so much more. So come on out and celebrate Miners Days in Colehurst. Come out to Galt Gardens and enjoy Shakespeare in the Park 2019 every Thursday and Friday from now until August 9th. The Lethbridge Shakespeare Performance Society presents the action-packed and exciting play Macbeth. Suitable for all ages, shows are free with an opportunity to donate. Experience the timeless magic of one of Shakespeare's best-known plays. For more information, call Kate at 403-329-4568. Southern Alberta Men's Ministry is hosting a barbecue and games day for men in the Lethbridge area on Saturday, August 24th at the John Martin Picnic Area in Pavan Park, beginning at 4 p.m. Enjoy an afternoon of hilarious fun and delicious food. Then, hear an inspiring message from Jerry Pullman. Tickets are 2 for $10. Buy one for yourself and a friend. For more information and tickets, contact Leslie at 403-327-4422 and follow Southern Alberta Men's Ministry on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And that's your Bridge City News community calendar.
Marriage. It is usually glorious the first year during the honeymoon phase, but can be a little bit more tough sledding at times down the road. What are some of the keys to a successful marriage? To discuss this more in detail is Pastor Kelly Stickle, lead pastor for My Victory Church in Lethbridge. Welcome back to BCN, Pastor Kelly.
It's great to be with you, Hal.
Okay, let's talk about sometimes how the spark fades in a marriage. Sometimes, as guys, we don't really notice the signs. Why do you think that is? Where the women do?
Yeah, it's true. The women, a lot of the studies show that the women are the first to notice that something's not right. In fact, when most counselors survey out of 10, how would you rate your marriage? They say the average response is that women will rate their marriage 4 points lower. That's the average, 4 points lower than their husbands do. And that's because, men and women, this is a news flash for everybody, but are quite different. And women... Well,
men are from Mars, women are from Venus.
Yes.
We figured that out long ago.
We're quite different. Women are... Their value is they value highest security, and so because they value security, they want that kind of interdependence. Where men value significance, because they value significance, they are more independent. And so in women, women want this interaction. They want feedback back and forth. They want interdependence in the relationship. They're more dependent on the relationship. That where men are naturally more independent. And so typically, this is why there's a big difference, because women are more, and guys are kind of oblivious to this whole thing. We're happy. We got fed. We got our laundry done. Everything's good. We're typically more satisfied that way, and we aren't the first to pick up on something not going as well.
So, Pastor, how important is that emotional connection with our spouse?
It's vital. It's very, very important. I think a lot of times, again, us guys, we want to be, because we value on significance, we want the more practical stuff, less emotional stuff, and generally less emotional. But it's important in our relationships to be aware of the emotions of everything, but at the same time not be completely dependent on emotions, because emotions are fickle. They come and they go. They're up and they're down, and so it's important to value that emotions and to pay attention to the emotions, but not to be dependent on them.
It's important to keep it maybe at an even keel for consistency.
I think, I think there's wisdom in that, but at the same time, yeah, it's okay to flow with the emotions and to create the spark and generate the spark and have the ups and make sure that we're not too high with the highs and too low with the lows. But you don't want to be, even keeled. It can get boring pretty quickly too. So you don't want to get too even keeled, I don't think.
So what happens when the spark is gone and you want to recreate some of that magic from earlier on in the marriage? What does a couple need to do?
Well, I think there's a misconception that love is a feeling. I think a lot of people assume it. They might not come out and just say that, or maybe they will. But I think love is, according to the Bible in 1 Corinthians 13, when he says love is patient, love is kind. I don't know about you, but I've never experienced the feeling of patience ever. Patience is an action. There's an action that comes to it, and love is an action first, and the feelings typically follow. So if the feeling starts to fade and we see that problem, I'd highly encourage people to do the acts, to acts of love. Show patience, act it out. Show kindness.
How about do the dishes? That's an act of love, right?
Yeah, service. Yeah, serve them and serve the other, and you'll find that over time the feelings will follow those actions.
As a husband, how do you respond when your wife says, "Honey, we seriously need to talk about this marriage"?
You listen.
So you turn off that football game, turn off the hockey game.
Well, you push pause on the football game.
Oh, I'm sorry, just pause?
Yeah, PVR. I don't know. I'm just kidding.
Okay.
But no, we definitely you got to stop and listen. The general rule is if she's saying it, that's not the first time she's thought it or felt it. And if she's saying it now, she's come out and done that. And been bold enough to speak it out, it's probably something that she's pondered for a while. So, husbands, pay attention. It's vital, and listen to what she has to say, and don't overreact or don't dismiss what's going on. Pay attention, listen to what's going on, listen past what's just the emotion at the time or just the words at the time, and going, okay, is there something I can do? Is there something I can help? And what do I need to change, and be willing to change.
So if it's a concern to our wife or spouse, it should really be of concern to us as men, right?
It has to be. If it's a concern to her, it has to be a concern to us for sure.
How about communication? How vital is that to a successful marriage?
I would say that probably 90% of the counseling that I do with couples, marriage counseling, is issues over communication or miscommunication that happens in marriage. I think that's why, the 5 Love Languages book was such a big hit and such, has become a phenomenon basically, is because it's an issue of communication and how we can miscommunicate so easily. We're 2 different people, 2 different backgrounds, 2 different expectations coming into this relationships, two different baggages that come into this thing, and so we tend to communicate the way that we've expected it or the way that we saw it growing up, and she's communicating the way that she expected it and what she saw, and we can be 2 ships in the night, and we can easily miscommunicate. And I think it's amazing to me how couples don't, if there's a problem with communication, go get coaching. Go find a pastor, go find a counselor, go get coaching. The best, athletes have trainers and coaches. Even the professionals have personal coaches and personal trainers. They're the best, and yet they still need coaching. So in our marriages, it's the most important relationship, in life, and so we should get coaching, and if we need help in coaching and communication, that's probably the best place to go.
A lot of times, Pastor Kelly, in marriages, people get very busy with the kids, taking them to piano, to hockey, drama class, whatever, right? French horn lessons, and sometimes the marriage suffers as a result. So where do we draw that line, making sure we always make time for our spouse? Maybe go on date nights.
Yes, that's a great example. Is you have to schedule, date nights or time alone. It's security for the kids. We put the kids first, but that creates insecurity in the kids. Because they want to see if there's security between mom and dad, that's going to create security in them as well, and so they like it when they see us making a priority of one another. So it's really vital. Again, putting the action. I think scheduling a date night, or a date day, or a date breakfast, or something on a weekly basis, and saying you're the priority, this relationship's the priority, is vital.
How important is it when you get into a conversation which sometimes escalates into an argument in front of the kids, that we make sure we don't put down the other spouse, that we support and lift up the other spouse, and not maybe disagree and argue with them in front of the children, maybe take them aside, his or her, like spouse, and speaking privately, not in front of the children. How important is that to a healthy marriage?
It's very important, and when couples are together, I always encourage them, don't fight or don't escalate the fight in front of the kids. I think it's okay sometimes to disagree in front of the kids because you show kids how to interact and how to disagree with
problem
honor,
solve,
and
right?
problem solve and with honor and respect. But if it's escalating, general rules, don't fight in front of the kids. And then I really encourage those, people who are separated. Man, it's very important, hugely important, that you don't put down your spouse to the kids or in front of the kids, or don't talk disrespectfully about your spouse. The kids, to sway the kids, to make the kids on your side, because inevitably it's going to come back and bite you really, really hard. And the kids, that's meant to the kids, that's mom, that's dad, and they'll hold the resentment against you if you do that, if you disrespect the other.
I grew up in a broken home where my parents were divorced when I was 6, and I got to tell you, my mother and father played me against each parent, and it was hard to do.
It's really hard.
It was really difficult as a child. Like, what do I believe? My mother slamming my father slamming my mother? Like, who do I believe? Who's right here?
You will gravitate. This is the natural case for kids. You will gravitate, especially as you get older, you'll gravitate to the one who was most respectful of the other. The one who is most disrespectful is the one that you're going to have a tough time in the relationship as you age.
So, Pastor Kelly, R-E-S-P-C-T, the Aretha Franklin classic song. How important is that in a successful marriage?
It is vital, especially, I love what Paul said in the book of Ephesians, right? Because he instructed, husbands, love your wives. So he said, you've got to cherish and love your wife. That's creating security. But then he says, wives, respect your husbands. He never told the wives to love their husbands. He says, wives, respect your husbands. And men crave that respect. If you poll most men, they'd say, would you prefer to be respected or to be loved? Most men would actually say they would prefer to be respected. And so respect is vital in a marriage, especially for a wife to a husband. Husbands need to respect their wives as well, but it's better to love and to cherish her and to make her feel secure. But respect is vital. How we talk to one another, how we treat one another, how we elevate the other one. Yeah, it's vital.
How about teaching husbands how to become more sensitive to a woman's needs? Because a lot of times as guys, we can be very insensitive. We don't realize we're insensitive.
Yeah.
It's like, don't worry about it, it's fine, it'll go, or even sometimes too, as guys, we want to solve problems.
Yep.
Where she doesn't want you to solve the problem necessarily, she just wants you to hear about the problem so she can air what's on her mind, right?
That's the hardest one, isn't it?
Well, because as guys, we want to solve it. It's like, it's a problem, I got the solution.
Yeah.
No, honey, I don't want you to solve it. What do you mean? I don't get it.
Yeah.
So how can we be more sensitive to our wives' needs, but not necessarily solve the problem?
Man, I do self-talk all the time. When my wife's talking, I'm going, okay. Because naturally built inside of us, all of us guys, is to fix. We want to fix. If something's broken, we want to fix.
Absolutely.
If she's broken, we want to fix. If she has a problem, we want to fix.
The kids are broken, we got to fix it.
Yeah, we got to fix it.
Right.
And that's not what she wants. She sometimes just wants an ear to hear and to listen. And so there's many times where, as guys, you have to remember going, okay, no, I don't need to fix this. I just need to listen. And that's hard, isn't it?
Being a sounding board, right?
Yeah.
I'm glad you brought that up. Hearing and listening. What is the big difference? Sometimes she says, you heard me, but you weren't listening to me.
Yeah. The listening is, I think, you've got to be able to hear her heart and listen to the words. And so there's to what she's saying. And it's hard sometimes as guys because we're in fix-it mode. And so our mind is typically going to the answer and she's not even done explaining the problem. And so one of the tips and tricks that I teach and use myself is active listening. So I say when someone's asking you a question or when someone's telling you something, use active listening and repeat back. So what I hear you saying is, and repeat back, and then allow her to respond to that. If she says, no, that's not what I meant at all. Oh, okay, then now, okay, so what are you saying? You allow her to explain it again. So what you're saying is this. And by using active listening, it's very respectful for her because she knows that you're listening. And it really helps you get to the heart and be able to hear what the heart of the issue is.
Now, you authored a book called Mindcraft, which deals with our mindsets. Do we need to change the way we really think about our other half?
Yes, absolutely.
How so?
Well, that book is based on Proverbs 4:23, which says, Solomon says, above all else, guard your heart, for out of it flows the issues of life. So if we were to take that and apply that to our marriage, above all else, let's guard our heart of the marriage. Let's guard the culture of our marriage. Let's guard that everything is going to flow out of that. We're going to, how we feel, how we respond, how happy we are, all of that's going to flow out of that, and paying attention to that. So we need to change and to pay attention to the heart of the matter, and change the heart of the matter, and make sure that we're constantly growing and learning. And I think it's vital in that one is renewing our minds in our marriage means I've got to read a book once in a while on marriage. I need to grow myself and improve my thinking on how I can be better as a husband, and how we can make a better marriage and create a better culture, and get coaching once in a while. We call it counseling, but we as guys don't want to go to counseling because we think there's a problem, but we look at a counselor not so much as a counselor, but as a coach, and going to tweak me a little bit on our communication, tweak us a little bit on our thinking, and renew our minds that way. And so we need to renew our minds. And
how about some mentors? Maybe a couple that's been married for 50 or 60 years.
Yes.
Ask them the keys to their successful marriage. Yeah. What worked for them and maybe what didn't work for them.
Yes, absolutely.
Right?
You're celebrating an anniversary coming up, right?
29 years.
29 years, yeah. Yeah, so that is, those accomplishments, that it's rare and more rare today. And so, if something's worked, let's listen and hear, and more than just, a lot of times guys, I don't know, we just stuck it out. Well, there's something deeper there. Well, why did you stick it out? Did you have any hard times? Yeah.
Never went to bed angry.
Yeah, never went to bed angry, yeah.
Right, that's key as well. Yeah. How about when we want to become critical of our other half? Not with the kids around, but just one-on-one. Maybe some of their bad habits are finally getting to us after a while. You left the toilet seat lit up again. Mm-hmm. Isn't that the 11th commandment? Remember that toilet seat lid and keep it down, right? But sometimes as guys we forget. So we get critical of each other, of spouses. So how do we make sure we step back, look at the big picture? Is this going to be helpful to my marriage? Right. How do we do that?
I think there's how we confront, and there's a skills and that we can learn. And I've read some amazing books on how to confront with excellence, how to confront with honor. And one of the things they say is in a conversation that you feel safe, you can talk about anything. And so create an element of safety in those confrontations. So when you confront and saying, okay, toilet seat, say, you always leave the toilet seat. Well, there's a couple things I violated in that one statement. You always leave the toilet seat up, or you always leave it down. There's a couple things. When I start a sentence with you, immediately you're going to feel defensive.
The walls go up?
The walls go up. I'm going to fight or flight. So because I feel unsafe, I'm going to fight and push back and defend, or I'm going to shut down and flight or run away from that. So instead of doing that, say, you can lead the same conversation with "I feel," and if you start the conversation with, "Hey, I feel this way when you do this," or when this happens, and if I feel this, then it creates safety. We can talk about the same thing, but we still created a realm of safety, and we did the same thing. We confronted, we were critical, but we did it with respect.
One more thing I wanted to ask you, showing an act of love. How about the husband taking care of the children so the wife can go out with the girls for a girls' night out? Maybe go to a movie for dinner with the girlfriends?
Yes.
Would that help too, do you think?
That would help, and it's not babysitting, it's your kids.
That's right.
Yeah, you're just fathering. Yeah, it's a part of what we do, absolutely, and it's honoring to her. I don't know if you've ever done this where your wife's gone away for a weekend or a week at a time and you got the kids alone. We learn a lot to going, okay, this is a serious job she has to do. It's an exhausting job.
Plus you get an opportunity to bond with your children, right?
Plus you get an opportunity to bond with your children. So yeah, give her an opportunity to do that for sure.
Kelly Stickle, lead pastor with My Victory Church here in Lethbridge. Thanks a lot for joining me again on Bridge City News.
Yeah, thanks, Hal.
We sometimes hear stories of hardened criminals dying in prison with no remorse for their crimes. Every so often, however, we hear of miraculous stories of a remarkable turnaround. We have one of those for you today. Today's guest joins me now from Burbank, California, is Casey Diaz, author of The Shot Caller, My Life as a Latino Gangbanger. Casey, welcome to Bridge City News.
Thank you so much for having me.
Now, you have an interesting story to share. You lived in a rough part of LA, grew up in a very broken family environment. Can you tell me a bit about that?
We settled into California in what's called the Rampart District of Los Angeles. It's about 3-4 miles away from downtown LA. And, at first, very normal things, playing baseball outside, football, and, just a normal life growing up in LA. But there was something of a bad element inside of our home, and it had to do with my father being a heavy drinker and very abusive, very violent abuser with my mom, and both verbally and physically as well.
Now, you said your father actually had a complete hatred toward you. Is that what I hear? And why is that? And what effect did that actually have on you as a boy?
Well, it's, and I don't know why. I mean, I have a son that's 10 years old, and when I look at him, my heart just swells with pride having a son. And but for him, in his defense, I mean, he saw both of his parents executed in El Salvador, and I think that had a lot to do with him going to the bottle and making some poor choices in life that affected his family as well.
Now, you had the misfortune to actually witness a gangland execution as a kid. How old were you at the time, and how much of an impact did that really have on you?
I was 8 years old, and we lived in, like I said, in the Rampart district, and I just happened to be at a fire escape. Those old buildings in LA, they're very similar to the ones in New York, and I was on the third floor, sitting on the fire escape, dangling my feet there, and this guy drives this car, parks it, and just like he was about to go get something to drink from his refrigerator, just walks to three guys coming up an alley, and he executes all three of them. And I was 8 years old.
How scarring was that for you?
Well, it's not it's not something that any boy is ready to watch or look at. And the surprising thing for me was, as an adult looking back at that day, was that I just sat there. It scared me, but not really. I didn't run. I mean, I stayed there until he actually finished the job and walked up to his car and just simply drove off. He didn't even, there was no screeching of tires. There was no hurry on his end. And I just sat there and watched these men die.
Was he ever caught, and was he ever charged?
I don't know. I was 8. I was never interviewed by the police or anything like that. I never said a word.
So, Casey, you joined a gang at the tender age of 11. What was the attraction to a gang?
I think the false sense of family, of being wanted, liked, validation. And I think for every young man, whether it's a little girl or a little boy, there's certain figures in your family, in your life, that you look up to, and if that element is missing, it comes by other ways. And for me, it was a street gang.
So I guess the street gang members as well, they said to you, "We love you. We're your new family now. We'll take care of you."
And maybe not in those exact words, but pretty much so. They embraced me. You feel wanted. You feel like they're picking you up and they're taking you to parties. They're hanging out with you. A lot of time is being spent with you, and those things start to you think that it's innocent at that time, but little do you know that it has a lot of evil, a lot of darkness, and you're going to contribute to a whole life of crime.
Now, you rose up through the ranks of the gang pretty quickly, and you got involved in a lot of violence. Eventually ended up in prison for second-degree murder at the age of 16. How scary was that for a 16-year-old?
By that time, I already had seen so much violence, both in the house, in the apartment, and out on the street. My first stabbing, I mean, as we talk about the book here, my first stabbing was at 11 years old. That was the first time I ever harmed somebody with a screwdriver. And so those things are, you start doing that repetitively and it becomes a habit. It's just like anything. So at 16, I was involved in a gang murder where another gang leader from a rival gang was, I ended up killing him.
So what was life like for you in prison, especially once you got sent to Folsom Prison, the one that Johnny Cash sang about?
Yeah, well, Johnny Cash was actually at Old Folsom, and that's a minimum security prison. And so New Folsom is on the same road, on Repressor Road, but it's all the way up the hill, and that's where I ended up landing. I landed at, and I was sentenced. When I got there, the CDC, the California Department of Corrections, has a scoring system of 1 to 100, and that's what they use to evaluate how much security that is needed for each individual inmate. And so for me, I went up there with 97 points, and I was supposed to spend my entire sentence in what's called the SHU program in solitary.
Now, the title of your book is called The Shot Caller. Can you explain exactly what that means?
A shot caller is basically a leader, someone that is very high in rank. Those titles are given usually in either in the state penitentiaries in California, or while you're actually sitting in what's called the gang module in LA County Jail. And I know that a lot has changed since then, but the gang module was where they housed the worst of the worst. This was every leader of a Southern California gang was housed, and that's where I was placed at, and that is actually where I ended up getting a title.
How did you end up in solitary confinement, and how much did that really impact you?
So I ended up there at New Folsom in the SHU program, where they house you 23 hours out of the day. You're allowed 1 hour out for rec time, which is basically they're transporting you from one 8x10 cell to a bigger cell. That's really what your rec time is. But I think that if you don't have a strong mind to begin with, solitary confinement will absolutely break the best of them. And I've seen men that they're 6'3" and 18-inch arms cry and want to commit suicide in there. It becomes you start hearing voices. There's so much that goes on in solitary confinement. And here's the thing, everyone that's in solitary confinement in these state prisons in California, they belong there. I belong there. And as some might say it's inhumane, you're in the SHU program because you belong in the SHU program. And, as an adult, I see that as a believer. There is a place for that. And when our behavior is out of control and we're harming people, the SHU program is adequate for that type of character.
So how long were you actually in solitary confinement?
3.5 years.
Wow. So they didn't let you out at all? I mean,
1 hour a day.
1 hour a day. Oh my word. Wow. But at some point while you were in solitary confinement, you had a visitor? What did she say to you?
Well, there was this Bible study group that came in once a month, and they only came in for a few minutes. They didn't spend hours there. And basically they would talk to you, do a Bible study with you. And a lady by the name of Frances Proctor, she's the one that came in and with a group there. And initially, she never bothered stopping at my cell. And on one particular occasion, she just asked the guard, is that a cell down there? Is there an inmate there? And the guard actually discouraged her. And I didn't know that they were talking about me, by the way. It was outside of the cell. And then she was very persistent in asking if she could approach the cell. And he was discouraging her quite a bit. And then finally, her persistence paid off. She told this guard, and very boldly, I remember hearing this, she said, Jesus came for everyone, including whoever's in there. And that's when the guard, the CO said, well, you go ahead and approach the cell, but I'm letting you know that that's Diaz and you're wasting your time.
And you had an unusual supernatural encounter that took place in your cell. Tell me a bit about that.
It's this lady, Frances, decided that she was going to intercede for my life in prayer, and she did so for 1 year and 6 months. She just gave herself to prayer, and I don't know if she fasted. I never bothered asking, but I know that she was praying for me, and it was in one of those moments while I was there by myself. I'm not under the influence of anything, and I get to see something, my whole life being played back from when I was, as far as I could remember, from the innocent days of childhood to some very graphic moments that only I would know play right in front of me, just like a movie. And I never knew how to pray. Never had a Bible, never read a Bible, never went to church. And all that Frances would come to do is for 2 to 4 minutes is, she would chat with me, and then she would pray, and she would always, tell me, she would always say to me, I'm praying for you and Jesus is going to use you. and she would never leave. Every time she came to visit me for those 2 to 4 minutes, once a month, she would always end her little routine thing with, "I'm praying for you, and Jesus is going to use you." And I kind of dismissed that, and didn't pay too much attention to that. But that's really intercessory is what got me to my knees in that moment. So it was through intercessory prayer that that really changed my life. I didn't know it. I wasn't looking for any type of change at all. I was okay with who I was and as a gang leader there, as a shot caller. And but I think that when God, when you encounter Christ, there's a decision that has to be made. And for me, I knew that this was God calling me. I didn't know him, but I just knew that this was God reaching out to me. And I knelt in the middle of that cell. I wept because I knew that it wasn't that, and I don't know how to explain this, but I go into details in the book, The Shot Caller. Someone that doesn't know how to pray, somebody that doesn't know God, that's not even looking for him. Isaiah 65:1 gives us a very good picture of what God does to people that aren't even looking for him. And in Isaiah, he says, to the ones that aren't looking for me, to them I say, "Here I am." And that's the experience that I had in that cell. And I repented, and I gave my life to the Lord unknowingly. I go into details about that as well later on in the book.
Now, Casey, after your transformation, you were released back into the general prison population. How did you handle this, and did you keep your faith to yourself privately, or did you share it with a lot of the other inmates?
No, God started to deal with me while I was still in the SHU, and I didn't know that I was going to get released out of the SHU at the time that I did. God had a way of doing that, and here's what was in my heart. For many years since the age of 11, I had absolutely no problem and no shame in proclaiming my gang and parading it. And here I am as a Christian at that point, and that same attitude was inside of me, and I wasn't going to go. I was just going to declare his name to everyone, and it got me a lot of beatings in prison. Multiple beatings in prisons for doing so. But you read the Book of Acts, and it just charges you up, and you see that. And if it was God's will to end my life at that moment, and that was it, I was willing to do that. But the beatings were for a 2-year period while I was in there and in mainline. And after that, a big giant riot happened there, in which all the ones that were attacking me for those 2 years were dispersed throughout other prisons. And then evangelism really began. By the time I ended up leaving New Folsom, over 200 inmates would become born again.
Wow, that's amazing. Casey, we only have about 30 seconds left here. Explain to our viewers how you were released from prison, how much time you spent in there.
So I spent almost 8 years there complete. The story, I wasn't born in the United States. Came here when I was 2. But there was federal agents waiting for me outside of the gate of this prison. And you got to get the book to really look at what happened in there. But God's mercy and his grace is how I live and what's carried me for over 20-something years since my release from New Folsom.
Casey Diaz, author of The Shot Caller, My Life as a Latino Gangbanger. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you so much for having me on your show. God bless you.
God bless you as well. On behalf of all of us here at PCN, I'm Hal Roberts. Have a great night.